Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This public hearing, sponsored by the Committee on the Guam Military Build-Up, Military Relocation, Public Safety, and Judiciary, is hereby convened. There is one item on the agenda, which is Bill number 119-33 COR, which is relative to providing equal protection for all families in Guam by creating equality in civil marriage. In accordance with the public law notification, the open government law, the initial notification to all the stakeholders, inclusive of our media partners, was distributed on Wednesday, the 17th of June, and also printed on the same day, 17th of June, Wednesday. And then the second notice, public notice, was distributed on Monday, the 22nd, and likewise printed on the very same day. We do have, like I highlighted, one bill on the agenda sponsored by the Honorable Senator Underwood. I'd like to give her a couple of minutes to provide her comments with regards to the introduction of this legislation. In the meantime, I'd like to invite Jasmine Stoll and Loretta Pangilinan, and if there's anyone else, I'm sorry. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to provide testimony, you're invited up to the front, to the panel to provide your testimony and provide your comments. So I'd like to open the floor to Senator Underwood, please.
Okay, well, thank you and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to provide some opening remarks for this public hearing on Bill 119-33 COR. Before I proceed, I just want to thank Mr. Vice Speaker and also Senator Ada for joining us here this afternoon. Bill 119-33 COR is an act to amend subsection 3207H and I of Chapter 3, Article 2, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, subsections 3102, 3105, 3108, subsection 3109, 3202A7, 3204, and 3206 of Chapter 3. Title 19 Guam Code Annotated, relative to providing equal protection for all families in Guam by creating equality in civil marriage. Bill 119-33 was introduced 20 days ago on June 5th, just several hours after District Court of Guam issued a ruling on the unconstitutionality of existing marriage laws in Guam. The intent of Bill 119-33 is to comply with the District Court of Guam judgment and to amend local statute to allow for same-sex marriage in Guam. I'd like to acknowledge the history of this effort to equalize civil rights in Guam. In 2009, Vice Speaker Cruz introduced a bill, which was Bill 13830, in support of the legalization of civil unions within Guam. Well, at that time, the bill did not garner the support needed for passage. Its introduction did provide the opportunity for people to organize around and articulate the need for a shift in how we view equal rights and whose lives matter. Even 6 years later, those efforts hold strong, and we see that today with a matter before the U.S. Supreme Court and the recent ruling made by our own District Court of Guam. Today, Guam is able to align with the civil rights movement that is global, and we make the conscious effort to lead in this regard. Since the bill was introduced, I continue to receive comments from various stakeholders and have also received feedback from Legislative Council. I intend to incorporate those amendments and minor edits to further strengthen the bill. Furthermore, I believe it is important to recognize and uphold the democratic process and that grants people the opportunity to choose and to express their livelihood with dignity. I express my sincere thank you to those who have come forward today and in the past, publicly and anonymously, to speak on this very important matter. Your courage holds a place in Guam's history and in the larger struggle to ensure that all members of the community have true access to equal treatment under the law. For those who are not able to attend this afternoon's hearing, I encourage you to send testimony as soon as possible so that we can be sure to have it included in the committee report for Bill 119-33. Lastly, thank you to the good chairman and this committee for holding this public hearing in good faith and as early as possible so that we can ensure that Guam is in compliance with the District Court of Guam ruling. Sijus Maasi.
Thank you very much, Senator Underwood, and I apologize. I thank you for recognizing our colleagues who are here. And to my immediate right is Senator and Vice Speaker B.J. Cruz. Thank you, Mr. Vice Speaker, for joining us this afternoon, and yourself, Senator Underwood, the sponsor of the legislation, and also Senator Tony Ada.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We do have, before I entertain the following individuals, Mr. William Pesh and Deacon Larry Claris. If you would like to join us up front. I'd like to just for the record share that the committee has received testimony, written testimony, from Mr. and Mrs. Mason, Patrick and Judy Mason. In addition to that, from a young lady by the name of Sophia Underwood, also from Reverend James Moore, and also Mr. Derek Baza Heels. So to date, those are the written testimonies that the committee has received, and the committee will keep the receipt of written testimony open for the subsequent days, 10 days from today's hearing, to allow our people to be able to submit written testimony should they desire to do so. So I'd like to go ahead and Mr. Pesh, please, if you can turn on the mic, recognize yourself, or identify yourself, and then proceed with your testimony.
I do recognize myself.
I'm aware of that. Thank you, Attorney Pesh.
For better or for worse. My name is Bill Pesh. I'm a local attorney on the island. And I thank all you senators for the opportunity to speak today. And I have prepared written testimony that I've submitted, and I'll read from that if I may. Thank you for the opportunity to present input on Bill 119-33, an act to amend certain sections of Title 10 and Title 19 relative to providing equal protection for all families in Guam and by creating equality in civil marriage. As I noted in my earlier testimony on Bill 109-33, these are exciting times for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, that's the LGBT community, both here on Guam and throughout the United States. Both public opinion and official response to our aspirations to be treated as equals to our heterosexual counterparts are finally turning in our favor. Today, 37 states, the District of Columbia, and Guam authorize same-sex marriages. Some of these states willingly extended these rights to same-sex couples, while others were forced to do so through court involvement. Unfortunately, Guam falls into this latter category. As we all know, the U.S. Supreme Court will soon determine whether all states and territories must allow same-sex marriages. A decision is due within a week in the Obergefell versus Hodges case. Two issues are presented by the Obergefell case. First, whether all states must permit same-sex marriages, or second, whether states that don't permit same-sex marriages must recognize such marriages that were conducted in states that do permit them. I am hopeful that regardless of what the Supreme Court decides, the Guam legislature will extend same-sex marriage rights to our territory through the passage of Bill 119-33. Of course, if the Supreme Court holds that all states and territories must allow same-sex marriages, Guam will have no choice in the matter. The island will continue to have to allow these marriages to occur. However, under such circumstances, similar circumstances, states and territories could still keep their old prejudicial laws on the books as a show of defiance. For instance, despite the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court held in 1967 that states and territories had to allow interracial marriages, it wasn't until 33 years later that all states amended their laws and constitutions to fully comply with the court's ruling. Alabama was the last holdout. Not until the year 2000 did Alabamans finally vote through a referendum to strike a clause in the state's constitution that had provided, quote, "The legislature shall never pass any law or authorize any or shall not pass any law or legalize any marriage between any white person and a Negro or descendant of a Negro," end of quote. Although this clause was unenforceable against the Supreme Court's ruling, it remained on the books as an ugly reminder of the deep-seated prejudice lingering in the state. Even in the year 2000, 41% of those who participated in the referendum voted against striking the offensive constitutional clause. I sincerely hope that the Guam legislature will not follow Alabama down a similar path of ignorance and prejudice. Please amend the law now rather than later. Even if the Supreme Court holds that each state and territory has a right to determine whether or not to permit same-sex marriage, I am hopeful that the Guam legislature will pass Bill 119-33. The LGBT community has been forced to live as second-class citizens far too long. I am well aware that many Guamanians cite Bible verses to support their opposition to same-sex marriages, just as many people similarly cited Bible verses to defend their stance against interracial marriages, and indeed continue to do so to this day. However, as senators, you took an oath to protect the civil rights of all individuals. For a good reason, the U.S. Constitution clearly separates church and state. The LGBT community is not asking for special treatment. We ask only to be treated as civil equals to our heterosexual counterparts. Please send a clear message of equality. Vote for Bill 119-33. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Attorney Pesh. If you can please remain there for questions, if by any chance there's any question by the senators. Thank you. Deacon Claris.
Senators of the 33rd Guam Legislature, I am Deacon Larry Claros. I am the Director of Family Ministry with the Division of Pastoral Ministries in the Archdiocese of Aguon. I am here to testify against Bill number 119-33. Most people think that same-sex marriage will not affect society. A crew from the Family Research Council was sent to investigate and document same-sex marriage and how it currently affects our society. The following are my notes from this documentary as well as some of my thoughts. In the state of Massachusetts, the first state in the nation to legalize same-sex marriage, the state of California followed, and so as other states, and now the U.S. territory of Guam on June 5th, 2015, a ruling by the District Court of Guam ruled that existing marriage laws in Guam are unconstitutional. Inscribed above the entrance of the U.S. Supreme Court, it reads, "Equal justice under law." But with the 9 justices, with its ruling of Roe versus Wade in 1973, justice for all Americans is now forever lost. Today, issues regarding this ruling of Roe versus Wade still are being debated and will be debated until its demise. By the end of this month, the U.S. Justices of the U.S. Supreme Court will rule on the issue regarding same-sex marriage. Is this bill in anticipation? I'm referring to Bill 113 or 119-33. Is this bill in anticipation that the Supreme Court of the United States will rule in the same line? Federal Doma Defense of Marriage Act was signed into law by President Clinton on September 21st, 1996. It defines marriage for all purposes defined under federal law as the union of one man and one woman. Now this is being challenged by advocates wanting same-sex marriage. Doma, the Defense of Marriage Act, has had setbacks in recent court cases. It also lost its primary defender, the U.S. Department of Justice. They wrote to Congress that no longer will they defend Doma in court based on the belief that it was unconstitutional. It's not up to the President of the United States to determine if the law is constitutional or not. This is why we have the courts for. The President takes an oath of office to uphold the laws of the United States of America. The Obama administration's basis to attack this issue is its belief that there is some sort of quote in the Constitution of a right to homosexual marriage. In 2003, when the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts mandated same-sex marriage, there was no way to know the full impact. But that decision today, more than 12 years later, there is clear evidence showing problems associated with same-sex marriage. Chris Minu, president of the Massachusetts Family Institute, says that the first level of impact is in their schools, grades kindergarten to 12th grade. These children are being indoctrinated on same-sex marriage and the rightness, correctness of homosexuality. Some instances. A kindergarten age 5 came home from school with a book entitled Who's in a Family by Robert Scutch, introducing children to same-sex households. A 7-year-old, a second grader, came home telling his parents of a book his teacher read. It was and quote, "It was about a prince marrying a prince, not a princess." A book entitled King and King. It tells a story of a man and a man having a romantic relationship and getting married. It was clear to the parents of these children that after talking to the teachers and administrators that because of state law, Massachusetts law, allowing same-sex marriage, they can indoctrinate children without parental consent on issues of same-sex marriages and homosexuality. Concerned parents David and Tonya Parker filed suit against the school system, and in the Massachusetts federal court said that they didn't think the parents having parental rights on being notified on issues of same-sex marriage and homosexuality. The federal judge, Mark Wolf, wrote in his judgment about a book entitled Changing Minds by Howard Gardner and The Art of Science of Changing Our Own and Other People's Minds. Judge Mark Wolf believed that it is the school's job to change the minds of young children and that they are indeed young and impressionable, so that it's translating directly into what the courts did, legalizing same-sex marriage in the state of Massachusetts, and then teaching the children it's okay, and in fact, you could be gay. These are problems with same-sex marriage and how it becomes a legal platform for exposing our children to homosexual materials, and how same-sex marriage inevitably undermines parental rights. Dr. Julie Hamilton, she's president of the National Association for Research and Therapy of Homosexuality, also known as NARTH, said children and teenagers are at a time in life where they're still evolving, and so when they begin to label themselves homosexual, gay, lesbian, or bisexual, when they adopt those labels at a time in life when they're still evolving, that can have the effect of closing out other options for themselves. Brian Kamenker, president of Mass Resistance, a pro-family group in Massachusetts, showed an example of a booklet entitled Little Black Book, Queer in the 21st Century, picked up at a local high school at a gathering of teachers and kids pushing the gay agenda at that school. The booklet is disgusting, according to him. It says it tells kids how to safely perform a variety of homosexual sex acts, and it tells where can we meet other kids who are homosexual or homosexual men. It is published by the Boston Public Health Commission, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and other organizations receiving public money. The message is same-sex marriage is legal, and therefore you can't stop us from talking about it. Imagine if our very own Department of Public Health and Social Services were to do the same, all because same-sex marriage is legal on Guam. Another problem on the incredible impact on at-risk children who are placed in same-sex households. According to Peter Sprigg, Senior Fellow for the Policy Studies at the Family Research Council in Washington, D.C., it is argued that children raised by homosexual parents are no different from children raised by heterosexual parents. Unfortunately, the evidence simply does not support that, and that there is a study conducted recently which looked at family histories of 262 children raised by homosexual fathers or lesbian mothers. And it found that percentages of children who have homosexual parents who themselves became something other than heterosexual, gay, lesbian, bisexual, or unsure of their sexual orientation, ranged from 16% of those children to as high as 57% of those children. daughters of lesbian mothers have the highest rates, anywhere from 33 to 57%. Just to understand the percentage of the total American population that identify themselves as either homosexual or bisexual was 3.5% according to a very recent study. If you want to talk about the ratio, it's anywhere from 5 to 15 times as likely to be homosexual or bisexual as the general population. Children raised by homosexual parents turn out very differently from children raised by heterosexual parents. Another problem with same-sex marriage is simply a question: is it really marriage? The Reverend Mario Bergner, an Anglican priest and author, says, quote, "In Christianity, we could never say that there is such a thing as same-sex marriage, because we only have one definition of marriage, and that is between a man and a woman. So, same-sex marriage is a contradiction in terms, because marriage, according to the Judeo-Christian understanding, is two people who are other, coming together into union, and their very otherness causes a bond to happen." Unquote. John C. Rankin, president of the Theological Education Institute, says, "Human sexuality is meant to be diversity, since the service to unity, the two become one." Sex Another quote here says, "Sex, according to God, is becoming one flesh. And if you become one flesh as God intends, the sex organs of the same sex will not become one flesh. There is no way." This is a quote by Joanne Hiley, a former homosexual who struggled with lesbianism for 10 years from the age of 13 to 23. She is now in her senior years and has counseled one-to-one approximately 1,500 people struggling with same-sex attraction for the past 33 years. She goes on to say, quote, "I just rejoice in God, in His power to set people free from homosexuality. So they can say all they want to about how no one can change, but they can't fool me. I see it, and I work with it, and it's real." Unquote. The primary purpose of marriage is still, no matter how many times they want to deny it, is still propagation and procreation of the human race. This is a quote from retired Justice Joseph R. Nolan from the Massachusetts Supreme Court. I don't think it was part of that group that legalized same-sex marriage in Massachusetts. In Psalms 11:3, it states, "If foundations are destroyed, what can the just one do?" In the documentary, it showed the many problems with same-sex marriage, but an even bigger problem in the state of the institution of marriage in America today, a bigger one. The statistical evidence is clear: rampant divorce, fatherless homes are such serious problems that some may see the situation hopeless and say that we should simply accept these trends along with same-sex marriage. The destruction of marriage has not been coming in from homosexual people. Has not. It's been coming from men and women who give themselves permission to commit adultery, to use pornography, to neglect each other sexually and emotionally, and to, in essence, not to take seriously the covenant they've entered into. A quote from Joe Dallas, counselor and author, one who struggled with same-sex attraction himself. Leave the whole gay couple issue aside. Nationally, we have a major crisis of male and female having the capacity to stay together. 55% of American kids have experienced occurrence of parents rejecting each other. American men and women began to become sexually dysfunctional back in the 50s and 60s. I think their parents started before that. A generation gave rise to kids of the sexual revolution. The revolution that already started in the beds of their married parents, and the destruction of society at its basic and most fundamental level start. This is a quote from Pat Fagan, Director of Marriage and Religion Research Institute, Family Research Council. God offers a different path. Let's renew our personal commitment to our own marriage, making it everything God intended it to be. Letting your light shine before men in such a way that it may see your good works and glorify our Father who is in heaven. What to do with all of this? Well, we in Guam cannot yet vote for president. The people of the United States of America elect a president who nominates the justices of the United States Supreme Court, who are confirmed by the Senate of Congress, who are elected by the people. These justices serve for life. We need to pray for these justices to have wisdom in interpreting marriage to be between a man and a woman. More, we need to be a people of wisdom under God to elect our policymakers and leaders who are responsible to society. For you senators of Guam, elected every 2 years, I pray, as many of our people pray for you, to make decisions that are good for our island community, for the dignity of the human person, to plan the future for our children, and as a Christian, as most of you are, for the greater glory of God. The issue here is for equality for those concerned. Then draft bills pertaining to their precise needs. But please do not redefine the institution of marriage. It must remain between a man and a woman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deacon Claris. Any questions or comments, Senators? Vice Speaker Cruz?
I wasn't going to, but I will. I must compliment you on a very well-researched piece that you put together. Have you or anybody in the Archdiocese done any research as to the effect on society and the effect to all those of us throughout the country who were subjected to pedophilia by priests and the impact that has had on the moral fiber of society?
What has been done for the nation and probably for some countries in the world, but not exactly here on Guam. But I will say this, Senator, that we're all human, and whether priest, bishop, whether senators, whether mothers or fathers, we all make mistakes in our decisions in life. The thing is now we're all in a situation to go ahead and make decisions for the future. And sometimes in our, if you'll forgive me for this word, selfishness, that we try to put our own agenda forward, not thinking of others, then I think we destroy society little by little. And we have, since history started, since man started on this earth. We have. But we've also done many good. Many good. I remember my life here on Guam and living off island for a few years and coming home and just looking at our society evolving, changing for the good, for the bad. But somehow we all survive. But there's one thing we need to understand, that in the mistakes we make, there also must be forgiveness so that we can move forward. This is something that the human person sometimes fails to put into their hearts.
Can I just ask what that study is? I'd like to read the study, because you quoted
many.
At least 24 treatises
and
in this.
And from that
and
documentary.
so I'm just wondering whether or not you've done a similar study on the impact, because you cited Massachusetts continuously.
Of course.
And Cardinal Law had to resign because of the huge number of pedophile cases that were throughout the Archdiocese of
Right.
Boston.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, have you guys done any studies to determine, or have you read any studies about the impact and the effect that has had on society? And if you could share that with me, I would love to.
No, not for our local archdiocese, but we relied really on the United States, and of course that's a bigger body. So therefore, our small community or Guam, we can just merge that into it.
I understand.
Yeah,
You
but
didn't,
no,
you
not
didn't
local.
cite anything in your 4 pages about Guam.
Right.
You cited all the studies that were done in the States. And so I'm asking, can you provide me with similar citations to studies that you looked at to determine the impact that the church has had by allowing and its the pedophilia within the church to continue?
As of this time, Senator, no, I don't have those studies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Speaker. Senator Underwood?
Thank you, Deacon Claris. I just had a question. You had noted that there was a study that compared the parenthood of parents of same-sex marriage and the effects on children. You know, that the children from households of same-sex marriage and then the children from heterosexual marriage, and that the children from same-sex marriage were somehow different. So can you elaborate? How different were they? What did the study
They
say?
more, according to I didn't print out the graph. I should have, but what it states is that children raised, not all now, okay, there's a certain percentage, but there's children that are raised in these households, whether fathers or mothers, and that they grew up to having probably the same type of relationships their parents had, their mothers or their fathers. So these high statistics, these studies that this Family Research Council did, I think it's accurate. Yes.
So that was what you had noted, was that, but you didn't have the statistics about what percentage of these children actually ended up. Was it significant?
It did put I did put the percentages.
Mm-hmm.
For it says daughters of lesbian mothers have the highest rates, anywhere from 33 to 57%, and that for children itself, for the 262 children that was brought into this study, it quoted here anywhere from 16% of those children to as high as 57%.
That's a wide range.
Yeah.
I am just curious. Let's just bring this situation right here in Guam. We're a small community, and we're a community where we have friends, we have relatives who are homosexuals, who are gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual. And so we are an very accepting community. So I am just, I'm really puzzled because I was raised a Christian, and fundamental to Christianity, as I was raised even in Catholic, is God's unconditional love for all of us. And the reason why Christ really went to the cross is because we are all subject to sin, no matter what that sin is, but all of us, as you have noted. So how can we then treat our brothers and sisters who choose a different lifestyle differently and treat them as if they are lepers?
No offense to interrupt, but I didn't choose this. My path.
I mean, yes, okay. Or with a lifestyle that they have right now that's different from the heterosexual family. How can we as Christians continue to profess that we are Christians and treat them differently and treat them as if they are lepers, that they are not to be given the same rights as everybody else? to be treated equally. How can we do that as Christians, knowing that fundamentally Christ had died for all of us, because we can't do it on our own?
Thank you for your question, Senator. The church stance with regards to, if we can go to that word homosexual, is sometimes could be misunderstood. Christ says to love God and love your neighbor. So therefore the church loves everyone. The church promotes that we should love everyone, most especially our brothers who are probably have chosen a life for themselves, whatever it may be, we disagree with it or not. The church has always says to go ahead to love your neighbor as God told us to do. And we have. Some don't probably understand that. That's why we have many situations in the world. I will say this, though, is that the person wanting to choose all these things, their rights and so forth, okay, everyone is free to do whatever they want. Everyone is free. We all were given that freedom of choice. The thing is that some of us, okay, probably have made right choices and terrible choices, okay? To judge is only to be given by this God when He comes. He'll set everything straight, honestly. And maybe all of us that are confused of what's right and not right, then and only then we will know the truth. I pray, though, that what the church teaches, truly in the context of loving God and loving your neighbor, is to truly try and live it in this life. My brothers, I have many relatives, senators, okay? I have many relatives that I love who are in a same-sex attraction relationship. Does that not make me love them? I love them truly because they're my family. They're my friends. But for them to choose that, it's their choice. I will not interfere. They know, if they're Christians, they know the teachings of the church with regards to this. And then they make their decision. I will respect that. And we will respect that always. We've always promoted that. But many people have said otherwise because all they hear is that we condemn people. I am a Christian in the Catholic Church, the universal church. And therefore, as a Christian, I try to live it as much as possible. So no, I don't want to judge anyone. What I'm trying to do here is I'm asking all of you to don't touch marriage in its redefinition. If our brothers who have a different lifestyle wants these certain rights, then pass laws or have bills to these certain laws.
Okay.
But do not touch marriage. It is from the very beginning about this union of man and woman. Everyone can have what they want based on how we go ahead and make these laws. Equality was given under the Bill of Rights of the United States. We have these basic rights. But here goes now, it's up to us if we're going to look at changing marriage, then I have something against that. Because I am a married person myself, okay? And I want my children to understand what marriage is. And it will remain, I pray you will make it and have it remain between a man and a woman.
Just going back to the data that you have, that gay marriages, or as you put it, or having lesbian parents results in anywhere from 17 to 57%. When do you acknowledge was the first gay marriage?
When do I first acknowledge?
Well, yeah, I mean, when was the first one? Because I'm trying to figure out if Mr. Pesh and I came from heterosexual couples.
You did. Otherwise, if it was same-sex, you
yeah, I'm trying to figure out how did that happen then.
Yeah.
That it wasn't that my father was gay or my mother was gay. It just, that's why I really have some concerns about you using that statistic, because I know that there's lots of people that are raising children and they don't come out the same way. I mean, and to use that as the basis for which to oppose this. Because all the rest of us, otherwise it would be, except for the ones in the marriages that occurred since 4 years ago, those children are only 4 years old. But we've had generations and generations and generations for thousands of years who were gay. And they didn't come from gay marriages. So the number of gay people out there has nothing to do with what their parents were. So I'm just a little concerned about citing that statistic as being a reason for being against it. If anything, what we should be standing for is to try to have people understand their responsibility as married couple. There should be more of that than anything else, because people don't understand their responsibilities.
Well, there's something that is very different between a male and a female in all their mechanics. We think differently, our bodies are different. We look at things differently. And the father and a mother will have all these different gifts to give their children. And here goes now is that when the statistic says this, I trust what I hear, what I see is correct, because they've gone through this for the past 12 years. And they're seeing this affecting their society in the state of Massachusetts. And probably anywhere in the United States, okay, that have legalized this. What I fear is that if this is legalized on Guam, then just many people will fall into the same area. And not to say that anyone else's children will be gay or what. That's going to be their decision, Senator. Everyone has this freedom of choice. So
I understand.
So
I was a little concerned to use that
yeah.
as part of the argument, because unless of course you're going to say that your gay cousins or your relatives that you've acknowledged that you have came from gay parents, and I really don't think that you're ready to do that, are you? So I'm just saying, where did they come from? They came from good, God-fearing, heterosexual couples. And to then blame that there's going to be some increase or decrease in the number of homosexual or lesbians as a result of gay marriage, I really don't think follows. So
Well,
I'm just a little concerned about you using those statistics and saying in the range from 17% to 50%, 57%. I mean, that's huge range.
I'm going to use this example, Senator, that the person always is a product of his or her environment. Okay, if one comes from a family that there's domestic abuse, and the children see this, it's already noted in studies that usually the children will follow suit. So in anything, we become products of our environment. My wife and I choose to show our children we love them by loving each other as a man and as a woman, as a husband and as a wife. And this is the example my children see, and I hope that they will follow. If they choose a gay lifestyle, and as adults, that's their choosing. And I dare not interfere. I may not approve, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to love this person, my child. You understand also in that? So here goes now. Everything depends truly on the environment of where these children grow up. I'm not saying they're going to be gay or not. That's going to be their own choosing. We all have this choice. I'm saying that leave this bill, the definition of marriage, to be of the opposite sex. And then again, if the people that are in relationships, same-sex marriages, and so forth, and they want a certain benefit that heterosexual couples have, heterosexual marriages has, then if you deem it necessary, give it to them. They want it? Fine. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem is that when it comes to the faith side, when God created man and woman, I want marriage to stay in its original definition. And we as policymakers, we need to also understand that. I think we can accomplish satisfying everyone. But marriage belongs to a man and a woman. You call the others that want to have a union a union. Fine. And if you want them to have retirement and insurance and whatever benefits, fine. Pass those bills. They'll get it. But marriage belongs to a man and a woman. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking you to please keep that. Something that has been in place for thousands of years. And we today in this society having its selfish way of trying to change something that's been there for the longest time, I totally disagree with that. But I also respect the decisions of others and how they want to live their lives.
Thank you very much, Deacon Claris. We have another individual who would like to provide testimony. Loretta, please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
My name is Loretta Penglin, thank you for making me speak. I just want to comment on some stuff that you have read. Well, I actually just recently got married to the same sex. And we have a total of 4 foster kids. I have raised over 19 foster kids. I have raised over 19 foster kids. And I actually have a license for it. And my kids, I raised them as my parents raised me. It's their decision. Yes, I understand that. I don't raise my kids to like the same sex whatsoever. And I come from a good family. My parents are all in the church. And they're deceased now. They're really old-fashioned parents. And at first they didn't agree with it because they love me so much, they agreed with it. And they accepted me and my other half. And the thing is marriage changes a lot of things. But because we have kids and we in the future want to adopt, we want to be one as a family. And I give every day, I go to church, I pray. And I don't wish or pray on something I don't wish or pray the worst for people. I was very troubled when I was growing up, and I used to be a foster child, and I am giving back. I have changed a lot of my ways, so there's not a, honestly, it hits home for me just hearing all that. But my kids, they're treated and raised the right way, not to go the other way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Penglin, for your testimony. Any other questions or comments, Senators? No. If not, the committee will continue to receive written testimony on Bill 119-33 for the next 10 days, and then we will conclude by closing the committee report. Thank you very much for your participation this afternoon, and thank you very much, Senators.